You're an independent financial advisory firm. Would you be advising institutional investors, retail investors to own this one?
Well, what we do is we try to give people a framing to understand their decision. And by that count, the simple math obviously doesn't add up. This is a very expensive stock relative to any rational measure of value. But we're talking about Elon Musk, who has a tremendous track record of not just success, but convincing people that success is durable. So it's not a calculus based on valuation, it's a calculus based on faith. And plenty of people have a ton of faith and have made billions of dollars with Elon Musk in the past, and they're willing to give him a pass on this one because they think it can happen again.
Well, I want to talk connectivity a little bit with you and the focus on really telecom Starlink when it comes to this IPO. In 2025, it was 61% of the revenue. As I was mentioning earlier, I think for a lot of people who, haven't been to a rocket launch or actually, are big users of the AI tech that SpaceX has, maybe Starlink is the most tangible part of this business that they've interacted with. In your view, that's a pretty good business, right?
It is a phenomenal business. It is a truly
there were so many years when we were talking about, and Ed was reporting on it, the possibility of perhaps that being spun off as its own independent, publicly traded company.
And there are prediction market contracts on that right now, oddly enough. It is a truly disruptive business in the classic Clayton Christensen sense of the word. It's a new technology that offers a product to an underserved community and then builds up from there. So how Amazon started with books and then blew up to everything. Starlink started with rural customers and has blown up to everything. It's exactly the playbook investors want to see. And Elon, as usual, has played it perfectly.
I just recap the numbers. I find that so interesting that you're saying you can't do the math. You kind of can, and what a lot of the existing cap table told me for months and months was, how do I start to model for the orbital data center business? And what they would say is 2025, not the revenues from Starlink, but connectivity operating income, 4 billion, and the scale of deployment and rate of deployment, literally the operation of putting it into orbit, they just extrapolate out to space-based data center. Can you use faith or hope and do the same on behalf of clients?
Unfortunately, you have to.
Yeah.
There is no other option. There are no orbital data centers in space right now, right? So you are betting on a brand new technology, and what you're betting is the guy who brought you the past couple of interesting technologies can bring you the next one. But it is a faith-based process. It is not based in any math you can rationally model. And I was a sell-side analyst for a decade. I covered the autos. I know how to do a financial model.
Oh, goodness.
To a very strong degree, and this is not one of those analyses. So people can do whatever math they want to do. The stock's going to trade where it wants to trade, and the two may coalesce, that they may not.
But real quick, without betraying confidence, do you have faith? In other words, did you tell clients, like, look, this is a trade based on faith. We have faith, make the trade.
Yeah.
What I've told clients is, if you want to put in for the stock, I gave you a range. And I'll run through the numbers. The average IPO since 1980 up 19% on day one. So that's the bogey. 161 for SpaceX is an average IPO one-day pop. If you want to look at 2025, it was a 29% pop. So 174, which is right around where I think we're trading now.
173 and change. Nice.
So boom, 29% is the average IPO pop from last year. If you want to look at 1999, just to go bananas, that was a 71% one-day pop.
I remember
so
that.
Yes, I certainly do as well. I was working for Steve Cohen at the time, and that was an amazing year. That would be a 231 close.
Would Steve Cohen be buying this?
Steve Cohen would have gotten an allocation and probably have sold half of it on the open and be trading the other half very intelligently, because that's what he does.
That's really interesting. Hey, Nick Colas is with us, co-founder of Data Trek Research. Ed Ludlow's with us. Anthony Hughes, you've been sitting by patiently here at Bloomberg News. You mentioned, though, Nick mentioned SpaceX. The stock right now is up almost 28% here, 172 and change in its first day of trading. Anthony Hughes, you've been thinking about the valuation, writing about it. Got a question for Nick for us?
Yeah, well, I think one of the interesting questions, Nick, is, we do see it with a lot of these hot IPOs that they come pretty, they can come, it can rise pretty sharply out of the gate and then fall off pretty quickly in the weeks and months afterwards. I just wondered, do you think there's an argument with SpaceX that, perhaps it could do something a little bit differently just because there's such a need for people to buy the stock, the index inclusion and stuff like that? Do you think that could be a factor here in helping to sort of put a bit more of a floor onto the stock?
I think that it is a factor for the next couple of weeks because we have the Q entry, I think, on July 5th, if I recall correctly, 15 days after pricing. So you're going to see some offset of people who are owning the stock right now selling it to the queues when it gets included in the 100. Past that, there seems to be a fairly even match, and they actually did earlier lockup expirations for employees and insiders than usual. So you actually can pair the additional add of stock to the queues to the unleashing of stock from the individual owners that have it right now. So it should balance out. But I will make one broad macro point. It's very important. Most IPOs don't work. Most IPOs underperform in year one. And so to beat those odds is relatively hard. Stocks take time to season. Managements take time to season. This is not a company that has a lot of prior public market experience.
But the executives have a lot of prior public market experience. Elon Musk, for example, I mean, Gwen Shotwell, for years, the COO, has been not talked about as much anymore, but being like the adult in the room.
Yes, and she is.
At SpaceX. So I think people could push back on the experience part of this a little bit.
That is fair. The Elon thing cuts both ways.
Okay.
Look at the 5-year chart on Tesla and tell me that thing's been evaluated for the last 3 years. It just hasn't. So there is...
Is Tesla the model we should be looking at, Nick, in terms of for SpaceX, or that's not fair?
I think it's entirely fair because both are basically on a Musk premium, and a massive one. Tesla's going to earn maybe $2 a share this year. Stock trades, 200 times that? So you're talking about big valuations in both names. And I thought it was interesting, looking at Tesla at 1.5 trillion and this at, call it 1.92. You're talking about, two very large companies based on one person's vision, but not a lot of cash flow. That's the common factor. And you can be a seasoned management team, but I don't know any other seasoned management team that can hold those together besides Elon's teams.
Yeah. Ed, do you have a question for Nick? Because I know Nick's going to leave us after this segment. So
the
we'll
lockups are so interesting, and we remind ourselves the oversubscription. Actually, what's crazy? 4x to 5x oversubscription doesn't even seem that wild to me. Look at what's happening in China market for IPOs, 20x sometimes. I digress. There's a lot of evidence that SpaceX employees wanted to buy more shares. And the unusual difference with SpaceX is the secondaries market. They've had regular liquidity windows. Might that be a difference this time?
It certainly could be, but everything's a function of price, right? If this thing goes to 400, even the most ardent insider might be tempted to sell. So it's a function of price.
All I'm going to say, if the stock tanks a little bit, it makes it cheaper for SpaceX to buy it and merge the companies.
Very, very quick. Many times, SpaceX was the leader of the secondaries. They bought back shares from employees, and we never really reported on it. And that was true at the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just think there's just so many moving aspects of this. Nick Colas, thanks for jumping in here.